Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Phase 3 Kickoff webinar for the first challenge. So we are excited to be moving into this phase, and we'll kind of go through a little bit about where we are in the competition, a little bit about what happened with Phase 2 judging, and next steps going forward. So I'll be speaking today. I'm Sonny Kirkley, and Jason Pennington will also be on in a few minutes sharing with you. So let me share my screen with you, and I'm going to turn my video off. So we look forward to hearing from you. We'll have plenty of time at the end for questions that you may have, so do save those up. You can also be submitting them earlier in the question area if you want to queue it up for us to answer later. So we'll go through the administrative matters at first, and then really want to spend a little bit of time talking about sort of next steps, PSCR conference, and some other kind of outreach work we're wanting to work on with you. So this project is funded by NIST PSCR. It's administered by Indiana University. These are some standard disclaimers we put in our presentations. If we mention any particular team, product, anything along those lines, it's not an endorsement. We just use those for examples. The competition is technology agnostic, and unless we express a specific technology requirement in the rules of the competition. This is the team administering the first challenge competition. I'm going to go through details about the competition. We did that in the Phase 1 kickoff webinar. If you're new to the competition, we encourage you to go back and watch the Phase 1 kickoff webinar, where we go into more detail about the overall goals and some of the details about the programming that we're doing. But these are the key partners on the first challenge, and I'm at Indiana University and represent the prize administrator role. We do have first responder partners, and of course are funded by NIST PSCR. Two speakers today, myself and Jason Pennington, will share more about the programming so far. Just want to start out by re-emphasizing what we're looking for in this competition, and because it really came to bear as we started looking at Phase 2 submissions and where product roadmaps and where we thought teams were headed. And so in this, what we are now calling the main competition, because we're going to talk about a special topic competition towards the end, in this main competition, our core goal is for teams to be working towards producing marketable prototypes. And what we mean is not a prototype that is so rough that it's going to be 10, 15 years before you can bring it to market. That you have a relatively near-term focus and are working towards packaging it up into something that actually could be used by first responders, looking for meter accuracy within various types of buildings and structures without the initial mode being pre-deployed infrastructure. So assume you don't have access to anything you have, you bring in with you. They need to be robust for first responder use cases. This has to be something that works for first responders. We're also looking for scalable across diverse organizations. Will this work across various types of the services, fire, law enforcement, emergency medical services, search and rescue? Will work across various types of organizations, a small organization, a large organization, that scalability, that robustness. And is it affordable? If first responders can't afford this, it's not going to solve anything because they can't buy it, and then therefore they can't use it. So when you think about the competition and where your team sits, you want to think about how you're addressing these core fundamental goals of the competition. So for prize 2 winners, just logistically, you should have received an email last Friday. That email would have contained your prize amount, the information on submitting your materials. If you've already submitted your eligibility verification award distribution, you don't have to recomplete those forms, but we do need an email back where you validate that there are no changes needed. It's okay if you change. Sometimes you might start as a team and you later form a business or some other arrangement. It's okay to change, how you're participating in the competition. You just need to let us know. If you're going to be attending the PSCR conference and want the travel funds part of the award, we need you to send in the verification of attendance so that we can process that travel award to you as soon as possible. Once we have all these materials, the verification that there are no changes in your eligibility and award distribution, and the confirmation you are or are not attending the PSCR conference, then Haley can process your check. And there is a survey link in the email you received on Friday, so please complete that. Even if you're not going to attend the conference, we need to know a yes or no answer from you, and particularly if you're going to be presenting at the conference as well, so we can make sure we have the right space set up. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason, and he can talk a little bit about the phase 2 judging process and what to look forward to in phase 3. Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Sonny. So hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the phase 2 wrap-up and phase 3 kickoff. So as Sonny said, I'm Jason Pennington, and I'm very privileged to work with the IU team here to support this PSCR challenge. Sonny, if you'd like to advance. So just a review for some of the new competitors, and perhaps something that the phase 1 competitors already knew. What happens when you submit a response or an entry, if you will, to our first challenge? So those submissions are essentially reviewed by a validation team. The validation team is essentially looking for things like page count. Have you met the qualifications? Have you submitted the video requirements and all the attachments that we required? Once that happens and your submission is essentially viewed as validated, it moves on to an SME or subject matter expert review. Those reviewers essentially use a portal to very securely review your submission. And those reviews then have a chance for a numerical scoring against a rubric, as well as some subjective or qualitative comments from the judges, from the reviewers themselves. Those review comments and scores are then passed on to the judges, and the judges then have a chance to review all of the essentially approved submissions. And then we have a multi-hour deliberation. And that multi-hour deliberation, we're essentially looking at all the submissions that came in and having a fairly sorry if my latency here is bad. I'm doing this webinar from Europe, and I saw essentially a connection screen pop up. Once the SME reviews are done, the judges are then handed those submissions, and the submissions are then reviewed from basically reviewer comments, as well as an opportunity for the judges to present their findings. The judges then have a meeting, and the judges have a deliberation on all of the submissions that pass through. Based on the judge deliberation, we then have up to 30 teams that will be named as prize eligible in some fashion. There is a reference to the rules here on essentially what is the rubric for the submissions, as well as the scoring process. Sonny, if you'd like to advance. So in the phase 2 submittals, this is more of an informative slide for anyone watching today. This is just kind of a suggestion of what is the technology makeup, as well as the quantity of submissions. So you can see we have a pretty diverse set of ideas on how people are trying to solve this challenge, which is a pretty cool thing to think about, that there's not a single silver bullet here that's going to solve this problem. And ultimately, that's why we're doing this challenge. The problem itself is a big one, it's an important one, and the problem itself is not solved. If anyone has any questions on these submittals and the makeup here, by all means, please submit your questions in the chat. Sunny, if you'd like to advance. So out of all the submittals that we had, this is going to be a little bit of a summary of the phase 2 submittals. So what I'll say is there's a very clear upper echelon with respect to the judge scoring and the SME or subject matter expert reviews on the tier 1. So tier 1, I would say these scores are 82 and higher based on the rubric that we set of 80 and 20. With respect to, are you meeting the application requirements and the technology requirements, the roadmap parameters, and so forth. The tier 2, middle tier, so real tangible product ideas, somewhere between 78 and 64. And then we do have, I'll say, a tier 3, which is kind of we would say a bottom tier, and don't necessarily take the bottom tier to be a negative connotation. That tier 3 definitely has potential. There's quality team members, but perhaps the submittal is not as strong as the middle or upper tiers. And one of the things that really stand out in the bottom tier is, are you really focused on solving the localization and tracking problem in a way with which we could essentially think of our first responder partners as a customer? So there's some really cool technologies as part of tier 3, but are they really focused on tracking and localization is how I would phrase that. So these tier 2 and 3 teams, we would suggest consider meeting with project management. And I think Sunny has put out a link, if you will, to schedule perhaps a one-on-one discussion or a two-on-one discussion with the first project management team to discuss some strategies moving forward.
Jason, we've not yet put out that mechanism, but we will do that soon. Folks have been starting to email me requesting those, and I'm collecting their names, and we'll get back to folks once we determine that process. You and I basically need to coordinate on when we're going to offer available slots.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I saw one of the teams had actually put in a request for that today. So, all right. So with that, let's see the very next step here. And there still are some teams, walk-on submittals and so forth, that aren't even being considered for judging. So, at the end of the day, the tier 1, 2, 3, it's something to kind of think about with respect to self-reflection on where you are as a team. But also here, realize that you're probably ahead of some teams if you're on this webinar and you're deemed a phase 2 prize winner. However, we do have some suggestions. Sunny, if you'd like to advance. So let's, I believe this is my slide, correct, Sunny? So
I created it. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, I did, and it's certainly, I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit, and I would really hope that the people that are on this webinar are willing to read this slide and think about this. So let's see. So phase 3 and beyond. So given the overall circumstances, independent of scoring, where we are today. So scoring, and I would very much tell the people that are on the webinar, this is a function of both qualitative and quantitative. So we've had some teams that have scored extremely high in this challenge, but I will say those teams in some cases have had the recommendations from our subject matter expert panels to actually not be advanced purely for the sake of, are they solving the problem? So they may have some really cool technology that does some really interesting things, but are they really focused on localization and tracking? Or would they potentially make an extremely good teammate or a supportive technology to another team? So when we say here in the bullet point 1, 60% of teams eliminated at the end of this next phase, That's something we want you to think about. How focused are you as a team on solving our really core challenge here, which is dynamic tracking and localization of first responders? So given the fact here today, we have a certain amount of teams, we have a budget and awarding up to 30 teams with some form of a prize. In phase 3, we're going to narrow that down to 10 teams. So now in the successive bullet points here, we'd want you to think about, is it time to seek out other teams to possibly join forces for prototype enhance it or go to market strategies? So if, for example, you make a really, really cool camera technology that's able to dynamically produce maps, should you be looking for a team that has some very interesting sensor and or tracking technology that's able to draw a dot on a map, but in their case, that map may not exist? We've had some teams with some really powerful technology that if and only if they have a map, they're able to do some really interesting and dynamic tracking. But what if that map doesn't exist? And that's where I want to move to bullet point 3. There are many ways to team with others short of a full merger. So there's no right way. We certainly don't want to diminish any long-term goals of teams that have existing technologies doing things in the market already by means of suggesting that you completely alter your business plan for the sake of this challenge. However, anybody that's on this webinar today, we want you to know that we think you're really vital and important to this community. There's something about the technology and or the team makeup and the submittals that you made that suggests you have value to this community and the larger problem we're trying to solve. So moving on to bullet points 4 and 5, there are several teams on here right now that have made it through phase 2 and you're awarded. Phase 3, 4, 5, certainly are going to be much more competitive when we're really getting down to that dynamic tracking and localization. That doesn't mean that you don't have interesting technology that's valuable to this community and this problem set. It's just simply a function of, are you focused on this problem set, or are you a very complementary package to what could be an extremely competitive package? And I always like to say 1 + 1 = 3. So take that to mean what you think it means here. If you can find someone else in this competition, or if you'd like us as a first management team to help you find a complementary technology, we'd be happy to have those office hours and support that. If you'd like to move on, Sonny. So here's where we are. We have a pretty long summer, early fall here, if you will, to be thinking about where we are at the end of phase 2 and where we'd like to be at phase 3. So I know there's already some questions in the chat about a refined phase 2. So what does the phase 3 mean, and what does a refined prototype demonstration mean? So if you will, this dates moving all the way out until October. We certainly know we have some university teams here that are going to be decentralized or fragmented here, if you will, during the summer, and that'll come back together in the fall. We want to give them ample time to reconvene and then think about where they're going with this challenge. But also, we think that the monetary increment of this challenge should give time for development, for hardware, for supply chain, for all the little things that got in your way between phase 1 and phase 2 to really work themselves out into phase 3. That also means matchmaking. And by matchmaking, I would suggest that means finding other teams. If you would think about a little bit of self-reflection on where you are. So where you are as a team, and I think we'll talk about this later, Sonny, if you want to advance, or unless you want to say anything with respect to phase 4 and 5. So phase 3. So phase 3, here what we say is very iterative, and I would emphasize the word iterative. Perhaps I should have boldened that to phase 2. So we're looking for a paper up to 20 pages. In the table of contents and the official rules, which we've linked to this webinar, pages 25 to 29 provide your reference to this. We're really looking down now to this geospatial tracking. So there are specific parameters with respects to X, Y, and Z, and we're going to start to lay out latency in terms of real-time data production to visualization. We're not yet getting to a prescription, if you will, of what format, such as JSON or others, should that data output be provided. However, we are getting down to a little bit more granular detail. So this refined prototype, we're significantly looking for progress versus phase 2 and that product roadmap. So at the end of the day, while we do believe that the prize awards for phase 2 are substantial, we know that that's not necessarily a monetary amount that's going to take you to the finish line, but is there a product roadmap that you're able to produce? So in a very iterative way, where are you going and what direction are you going? And that not only looks to accuracy and performance, but that also looks for a plan to add robustness to the device itself. That also looks to a plan to provide the data output. That also looks to a plan for RF and other signal analysis. So there are some videos in phase 3 as well. And then again, the public video, because we do believe as a management team of this project, that the community here is a powerful thing. And looking through, again, 1 through 30 plus submissions, there is a lot of potential for 1 + 1 = 3 in this competition. And I hope that you as competitors will take the time to look through the public abstract as well as the public videos of all the other teams that have submitted to this challenge. Even if you consider that to be a very purposefully inefficient opportunity, whether it's for this challenge or for broader business goals, I think you're going to find some really interesting technology and some really interesting technology to apply towards applications in the real world. Sonny, if you'd like to advance. So phase 3. So there is a typo on this slide, but not such a big typo. So phase 3. So this, where are we going with this program here? So phase 3, your submittals are going to look very much like an 80-20, with the 80 here in the upper left of this slide broken down into some very specific requirements. So strategic alignment, 30%, outcomes and progress, 10%, and progress versus phase 2, it should say, as 40%. So basically, there's some technologies in this competition that we absolutely love. We really geek out over. However, you have to look at from a self-reflection, which is the bottom right quadrant here. Are you really focused on localization and tracking? Are you providing a very, very interesting complementary technology? So this strategic alignment, upper quadrant here in the top left, 30%. This is where we're really focused on who's really focused on localization and tracking. So the outcomes and progress, are you able to present the white paper as well as the video demonstration of this tracking technology, or are you still focused on demonstrations and wireframe of what could be? That's what we don't want to see. So, and then I'll say the bottom bullet point of the upper left, progress versus phase 2, 40%, where are you? So we know we have some teams here that are still presenting app and or web page / cloud mockups that are suggesting what they could do. We want to see what you are capable of doing. And that's why essentially the prize money for phase 2 is incrementally more valuable. The second criteria, so the 20% of phase 2, phase three, I should say, is this product roadmap. So what's your plan towards phase four? And do you have a plan for addressing connectivity, data usability formats, and so forth? So if at some time during phase three, we're going to start laying out ground truth formats, as well as example maps and plans of suggested structures that we may see at the Muscatatuck Urban Training Center. How will you integrate your technology, or is it completely closed to external environments? So where are you today? Where do you think this can go? And is there a possibility to integrate with other units? So part of that down the road, phase four, phase five, starts to look at scenarios such as you're on a state, county, whatever city line. What happens if two departments show up? Do you actually have a potential to work to a common system? And do you have a plan for that? We move to this slide on the right-hand side. So this goals and interpretations. This is more or less how your SMEs, the subject matter experts, as well as the judges, are going to start looking at the applications. Are you aligned with the use case? So as I said many times before, do you have a really, really cool technology? Or are you really aligned with this use case? So this use case being, are you moving in a direction to actually show us that you're tracking first responders in a very reasonable and highly accurate and real time or low latency environment? Do you have a plan in progress? That plan could even include looking for supportive or complementary technologies, if you will. And then this results and explanation, this self gap. And there were a few teams in phase two that really did well in this section of what could they do with the monetary value and the app development time that they were awarded in phase one, and where did they think they can go in successive phases. And we do sincerely appreciate the video intro and demonstrations that all the teams provided. Not every team provided a video intro and demonstration. Many teams did. Some of those teams were certainly penalized for not providing that video. But the videos that we do have were very helpful. And I think the judges, I would say to all the competitors on this call, were very appreciative of that. Lastly here, bottom right on this side, self-reflection and strategy. So there's a lot of really good companies, a lot of really good individuals, talented individuals, some interesting technology that's been applied to this competition, and we're really grateful for that. What we do want to emphasize as we move from phase two to phase three, this is going to be the first round of cuts. And by cuts, we mean that there were up to 30 teams that we could award progress. We could see where you're going with this. Between phase two and phase three, we're going to move from 30 teams down to 10. Between phase three and phase four, we're going from 10 down to even 6. So we want you to think about this in the form of self-reflection and strategy. You know, where does this go for you as a function of this competition? We certainly think many of the people on this call have a significant value to this community and this problem set. Are you 100% focused on this problem, or do you believe that you're complementary to this overall problem set? And if so, we want to talk to you. We want to keep you involved in this competition. We want to find partners for you that make sense. We want to create that 1 + 1 = 3. Sonny, if you would like to move on. And I'm taking a quick break, and I did have a question. Could I explain the difference in the categories of the phase two pie chart a bit more? We certainly can. I'm going to hold that for the end if you're okay. So phase four outlook. And when I say outlook here, you know, I always like to look ahead. So we went from phase 1 and 2, which were up to 30 teams. Now phase 3 is 10 teams. phase 4, we're looking at 6 team awards. So where are you and where are you going? So if you have a really cool technology that you believe is part of the program, part of the problem set, think about phase 3, are you a top 10? But even more important, phase 4, are you a top 6? Ultimately, phase 5, are you going to be at Muscatatuck going through live demonstrations? So we do have the full published rule set. There are going to be some changes to the rules, but from a very broad or coarse rule set, phase 3, 4, 5 are already published in a way that you should feel confident in what are you working towards. If we look at phase 3 from a granular format, we highly encourage you to join office hours and talk through those submissions with us, or even ask for what do you think are complementary technologies or companies or teams that perhaps would be good for us. And I think we can have that very open discussion in a way that suggests a range of companies or technologies that's really aligned with what are your business goals. Again, so think about you as a company, as a team. What are your business goals? What are the competition goals of this challenge? And maybe they won't always align, but there are some, at an abstract or very high level view, there are a lot of complementary technologies that seem very aligned if they would combine. So this suggestions, please glance through this phase 4 submission. So where are you at phase 3? So recall that there are alternative competitions as well as an opportunity to team up. So this considerations, are you on track? And if you really reflect on what are the ultimate goals as Sunny laid out in this competition, which is dynamic localization and tracking in less than a 1 meter performance, are you on track? If not, what are you missing? And then again, these opportunities. So alternative competitions, maybe you have a significant algorithm, camera, vision, sensing, and so forth technology. Is that suitable for an alternative competition? And then even more specific, what we would love to find a way to help you do is this community building. How do we help you become part of that 1 + 1 = 3? And perhaps have a broader view from a management team of what are other teams doing, and essentially what are some of the things they're concerned about. And if we can help you in any way, we're really happy to do that. Sonny, if you'd like to advance. All right, I'm going to pass this back over, I believe.
Thank you, Jason. That was really helpful, and I hope the folks will ask any clarifying questions they need after we get through here. But I think that I'm really excited to see the progress teams have made and the real opportunities to really solve some critical problems in the market and save lives. So I do appreciate every one of the teams. So as we move forward in the competition, it says concept paper, should just say your paper. You'll need to use the first portal as you have in the phases 1 and phase 2 to submit your materials. If you don't have an account yet, if we have welcome competitors, for instance, on this call, you need to create an account on the first community portal, which is hosted by the R2 network. There are materials online there. Some of you, if you haven't been through there, I would encourage you to go through the resources area where it says learn and other materials. Just, there are some references that partner organizations have provided, and we keep adding new materials that might be useful to teams. So in addition to registering for the competition, you are likely to find other resources and materials there on the portal itself. Do download and read the official rules. They have not been updated since the original publication. If there are updates, they will be published and announced on the portal as we go forward. But to submit for this phase 3 of the competition, they're due by midnight Eastern time on October 3rd. And you would do that through the portal. We don't yet, and probably until later in the summer, will not actually set up the mechanism for you to physically submit your materials. So don't go there now looking for phase 3 upload, because there's no ability to do that yet. But we'll send out an announcement when we get closer to October 3rd and when that will be available. And if you have any technical issues signing up for the portal, getting into the community, please let us know by emailing us info@firstchallenge.com. So in phases 4 and 5, when you think about phases 4 and 5, we think about past phase 3. There's going to be an increased emphasis on commercial viability as we move forward. Even though we don't ask for particular commercialization plans in phases 1, 2, or 3, and we're not looking for those full business plans because we want you to focus on the technology. There is increased focus on commercial viability, and what I mean by that is, when we're in the meetings with the judges and SMEs, they're thinking about, is this product actually going to work on the market? Is this something first responders could use or afford? And so when you think about commercial viability, even if you aren't directly calling it a business plan, you need to be thinking about and informing the judges of, is this a viable idea? Do we have a practical way to go to market? Is this something that looks like it's going to be affordable for first responders? And so you want to start thinking about that. And also for your own teams, you want to be thinking now, what would it mean to take this product to market? If this becomes a product, if it's not already a product, some of you are enhancing existing products, you may have something already on the market, but you want to be thinking towards and working towards, what does it mean to commercialize? So there's an existing webinar. If you go to the site, you will see on the first portal, we have a link there for an additional webinar that was done with Generator, who is our main commercialization partner. So that webinar was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's just an introduction to commercialization, to them, and the programming that we're going to be doing, most of it during phases 4 and 5. But we will be starting to do some level of programming around commercialization. The one thing that will be available is we are starting adding into our office hours. We've been having technical office hours and administrative office hours. We're now going to add in commercialization office hours. And that's a time where someone who has some level of expertise in entrepreneurship, commercialization, et cetera, will be available to answer questions. Ask them anything that you have, and they can maybe provide guidance, advice, make introductions, things like that, depending on what your needs are. So do start thinking towards what it's going to mean to move beyond just making the technology work as you're working on phase 3, and realize that phase 4 is going to become a critical part. And there's actually prize money and judging associated with commercialization plans in phase 4. The other thing we're going to be looking to launch are special topic competitions. So we have put out a request for information, and I think Josh posted a few minutes ago a link to an RFI. We've done a request for information from the community. And in that request for information, we asked, what are your ideas? Or what's something you think you could offer to this community? And we do think this very much as a community that we've put together here. You happen to be competing for prize money, but we're part of a community trying to solve some major problems in the first responder community. And so these special topics are a way for us to incentivize development of maybe partial solutions. If maybe you can't solve the full problem of the main competition, but you have a partial solution, or maybe a specific type of use case you're developing, or maybe you have a platform, maybe an IoT platform, or an algorithm, or a sensor. So we'll be putting out the formal announcement of that in June is the plan. And the RFI technically closed last week, but I know a lot of you were focused on getting your phase 2 submissions in and recovering from that. So if you still have an idea, you can still you can still submit something to us that shares with us your idea. You can be very, very opportunistic. You can say this is something I want to offer, and if you make it a topic, or it fits within one of the topics, we'll propose to make this technology available to the community. These do not have to be necessarily submissions that you're planning to give away. Our goal is that what people are submitting somehow complements the main competition, And if it's something that's applicable to other competitors, that it's made available during the time of the competition for other teams to use at no or low cost during the time period of the competition. But later, you may, if they're using your technology, it may go to full market rates. That's okay. We just want to make sure that we're not just funding one-off technologies that have no impact on this community. So in the RFI, I mean, the solicitation for the competition, for the special topic competition, will address that further. So the phases 4 and 5, we're going to be doing live field testing. So when you think about your technologies, and when I was going through some of the submissions, as Jason was mentioning, I was trying to envision how would you actually test this at our live field testing. So when you think about the field testing for phases 4 and 5, we're going to have first responders going through authentic scenarios using your technology to track them. So can you actually track those first responders as they move through these test facilities? You want to think about, can you have your prototype in a packaged form enough that a first responder could use it, whatever that means, and actually track their location as they move through different parts of a building, different types of buildings, different types of scenarios. Because that's what we're going to be doing at the field testing, is looking for that high level of accuracy on the XYZ axis as someone moves through different types of buildings and different use cases. And so you want to be thinking towards that ability by phase 4, which is March of next year, being in that kind of a position. So what are the trade-offs you might need to make in your prototype design and development to be able to be at that point, assuming you win at phase 3 level. So as we think about moving forward, the Muscatatuck Urban Training Center, we think, is a really important part of this program, and bringing the teams, the finalist teams, the 10 teams of phase 4 and the other teams, the 6 teams of phase 5, we'll have a diverse type set of structures and testing scenarios that we'll have set up for your products. You really want to be thinking towards, can you demonstrate that you're going to be successful in Muscatatuck when you're submitting your phase 3? You may not be there yet. You probably won't be there yet at phase 3. But the judges will be looking for, if we take your product to this facility and we put it in a bunch of these buildings, is it really going to be successful? Is this a good use case for that technology? So I've said this before, but I like bringing it up. We're looking at multiple facets and ways to help you succeed as competitors. We've been offering webinars. We've been working with a podcaster, Smart Firefighting Podcast, to do interviews with subject matter experts. If you have not yet listened to any of those podcasts, there's some really excellent insights from stakeholders talking about the need for this competition, talking about your technology design, and really it's geared to you. I mean, we did set up those interviews and conducted them with you, the competitors, in mind. So you should seek out those webinars to listen to what the stakeholders are saying they need. And we'll continue to do that in other forms of programming, and looking at bringing other companies, other standards organizations, other folks to the table to help out. We'll be also trying to bring more first responder organizations directly to the table, hopefully offering office hours and other kinds of things like that, where you can meet with and interact with them beyond your initial, your team's first responder partner. We want to facilitate teaming. We keep talking about teaming, look for other teams to work with. One of our goals is not to lose talent in this competition, in this community. So we want to retain your expertise, your insights to solve these really critical location-based services problems. We're never going to tell you to team up with someone. If it seems like we're implying you need, team A needs to work with team B, that is not our intent. We're pretty strong on emphasizing with our own conversations that we're never going to force anybody to team together. We're only going to make suggestions or introductions, and it's up to the teams to decide if it's a good match. We're never going to tell you that you definitely should, this team should definitely team with that other team. If we ever say anything, it sounds like that, ask us and clarify, because that's not our intent. like I said, we're doing this commercialization support, and we'll be later making introductions to like investors and other types of folks, strategic partners, as part of that commercialization support, with more emphasis on that starting in phase 4. And the portal, we're hoping that the portal becomes a place where you can find information, you can engage with other competitors, you can find each other, etc. So, when you think about growing your teams, think about 3 kind of core areas, technical improvement, making sure you have this first responder focus and the use case focus, and you're thinking about commercialization, that you're not just so focused on the technology that you really don't have a clue how you're going to get this thing to market. And so when you're thinking about growing your team, maybe teaming, other kinds of things, you should really be considering these kind of core fundamental pieces. A few of you don't have a first responder partner yet as your official team partner. Some of you were almost there but didn't have a signed letter, things like that. So you want to continue to work with that first responder partner. We're continuing to reach out to folks. There's a great opportunity at the PSCR conference next week to engage with stakeholders who might want to come on as your first responder partner. So I encourage you to use that conference as a way to reach folks and get them excited about working with your team individually. There's no reason any team can't have multiple partners. So we just have a minimum of 1 as a requirement. If you have specific education, training, mentoring needs, please let us know as we're bringing people to the table, bringing resources to the table for you. Knowing what you need or what your gaps are, what your questions are, will help us do that. And like I said, the RFI officially closed, but we'll still accept your ideas for the special topic competition. We're anticipating due dates in the September is the earliest, maybe as late as November. It depends on how quickly we can get the logistics done on that and get the official legal review and approval at NIST for that. PSCR conference. So this is the most time urgent part of this presentation. So we need to know, and in your letter, those who won phase 2, in your letters, you had a link to a survey that we'd put out earlier. We didn't really update it, so the language is a little bit off in terms of timing, but where we ask you to let us know if you're attending the conference. If you've already filled out the survey and there's no changes, you don't need to resubmit it again. If there are changes or you can't remember what you said, you can certainly resubmit that and we'll use your latest entry for that survey. So do let us know for sure by end of the day tomorrow. We need to know this because we need to make sure we have the space set up. We need to be able to process your travel award. So each team is eligible. One phase 2 is eligible for $5,000 in travel funds. It's a flat amount. Doesn't matter what your costs are. It doesn't matter how many people you bring. It's just, are you attending the conference or not attending? And so, so you need to register. Part of that $5,000 will need to pay the registration fee, which I believe is $400 at this point per person. So you'll need to register that. We tried to get a discount and we couldn't do that. So, so you will need to pay that fee as well. So when you're at the PSCR conference, it's a great way to interact with stakeholders. There'll be a large variety of stakeholders in attendance. And so you should really be using that time to present yourself to this community. You're not expected to bring prototypes. You don't even have to take advantage of the demonstration tables, but we encourage you to do that because it's a great way for people to walk by and talk to you. It's a great meetup place. If you say, we can meet up with someone, they can meet at your table and then go off for a private conversation. There'll be 2 hours each day of the 3 days of the conference where we're expecting our teams to be at their tables. You'll have a place, a tabletop around, sort of cocktail table, tabletop, stand-up table, 2 chairs where you can put a laptop. You can put whatever you want on that laptop screen, a video. It could be your public video from phase 2. It could be anything else you want to show, a presentation you walk through. You're not encouraged to and not expected to bring your prototypes. We will not restrict you from bringing them if you want to. It's totally up to you as to what you see value in the conference. If you think bringing your prototype will help you engage with stakeholders, get feedback from stakeholders, then you're welcome to do that, but it's not expected or required. There'll be, each table will also have a poster. You'll have an easel, and that link that I put for that was in the email from Friday for the conference to let us know if you're attending has information on the poster size and things like that. I don't have that information right in front of me. So just go to that link and it'll tell you, I think at the bottom of that survey form, it'll show you the requirements for poster size, things like that. PSCR has asked for anyone who's going to be at one of these tables, as well as any other presenter at the conference to dress business casual, no jeans, no t-shirts. It's what they've told us that they're looking for. So they want people to have a professional presentation of themselves and their teams. And you're also, as an awardee of PSCR money, you're indirectly representing the organization. So they have asked that we pass that information on. So we have our own room. So there's a separate area where other demos will be going on. So they've set aside a fairly large size room for us to have our teams in. And so we'll have plenty of space for you to set up and to engage with the stakeholder community. And it'll be a set aside place where folks will be coming in because they're interested in what you're producing. We'll have one of our team members as resultant, as one of the supporters of Indiana University and administering this competition. So Nick from Resultant will be at the conference. And one of the things he's going to be doing is producing video interviews with teams, stakeholders, other folks that we can use for various purposes like social media posts. Later in phases 4 and 5, we're planning to do some live streaming. We want to pull back some of these videos from earlier in the competition where we interviewed teams to talk about what they were doing, sort of before and after kind of interviews. So as we're creating, at the conference, if you do not want to participate in these interviews, just tell Nick, tell me. It's not a requirement. We see it as a way to publicize you and your great work, to engage the broader stakeholder community. And we see a lot of our social media work is not, earlier on it was attracting competitors, but going forward, our social media work is about building market awareness and excitement about what you're doing, about your prototypes, about the technologies you're producing, getting the market ready for and excited about the introduction of your products in a couple of years. And so these videos are part of us bringing your story to the market. And so we'll be posting those videos in various places and various types of uses, but you're not obligated to participate in them at all. Just say, I don't want to be interviewed, or it's better to talk to this other person. For teams who aren't going to be at the conference, we're going to find an alternative way, probably via Zoom, to do a one-on-one interview with your team, so that you have equal ability to be exposed. We don't want you to be penalized because you weren't at the conference, but we don't yet have a mechanism in place for how that's going to happen. We'll probably figure that out after the PSCR conference is over. But that's to us an important part of our marketing and outreach for the competition and for individual teams. So if you have any questions about any of the PSCR conference, attending, anything else, logistics, email us at info@firstchallenge.com. So this just came out just before this call. So I posted it into a slide. For those who haven't registered yet or who registered earlier, just make sure you saw it. Based on an increased, I think the local area there is now an orange level rating for COVID. So they've now instituted this level of protocol for the conference, where either you have to be fully vaccinated and you must complete a verification form, and you would have received an email if you already registered. If not, I assume they'll point you to that link when you register, or you have to have a negative result from a test taken within 72 hours of arrival at the conference. So see the fact file here. When you go to the conference website, they have a link for health and safety. So be sure and check that out and make sure you have met one of these 2 criteria before showing up. And so this is, local health authority requirements that the conference is abiding by. So if you have any questions about this particular aspect of it, you should email conferences@nist.gov because we have nothing to do with these requirements. So the first portal, we've introduced this before in prior competitions. Please get on there, get all your team members registered. We're going to be engaging more and more through the first portal. It's been undergoing substantial improvements and enhancements over the past 6 months. And yeah, it's getting to the point where, you know, we're able to more effectively engage you as a community within that space. So do get on there and make sure you're looking for resources and events and things like that, including like links to our office hours, which happen every week, things like that. So your public abstracts and videos. So you starting with phase 1, you had to do public abstracts. Starting in phase 2, you have to start also producing a public video. And like I mentioned before, the videos we're going to capture at the PSCR conference. These are about engagement with community, engagement with each other as teams, and maybe, you know, thinking about teaming or reteaming or collaborating with other teams. This is a key mechanism to do that. So all those videos that you submitted, all the public abstracts you submitted with the phase 2 are now available on the first portal. You don't have to have a password to see that page. So anyone, you can provide that link to anyone that can go and look at your materials. They can look at all the teams. So that is available now, and we see as a key part of a way to share your story. So when you're thinking about this, so we'll have a page for phase 2 winners, just like we had a page link in the first portal, the left-hand navigation for phase 1 winners. But we also have walk-on competitors. We'll have the special topic competition competitors. So we're, in addition to the winners of the phases links, which will have, you know, the materials they submitted at each of those points in time, we're just going to have a general competitor link. The default will be to include your last phase submission. So whatever for teams that submitted for phase 2, whatever you submitted for phase 2. If you're a walk-on competitor or you skipped phase 2, maybe you're in phase 1, but you skipped phase 2, you can still provide us with a public abstract video, and we'll add it to the general competitor link. So that will be up on the portal soon, sometime in June, where we have other competitors. You can revise these ongoing public abstracts and videos at any time and just send us a new link. So if you want to change your messaging, you want to update it, you want a slightly longer video, you have a special message for first responders, you're looking for teaming and you want a message to other competitors, you can update your public abstract and your public video and send it to us, and we'll replace that on the portal, because this is basically your way to message the community or the part of the community you want to reach. So send us those revisions. If you revise every month because of changing needs or changing state of your prototype or who you're trying to engage with this month, we're more than willing to help you do that. We see this as a way, again, to facilitate community building and engagement. So do send us that. I know the first portal, and I need to address it with them, it messes with your logos. So some of your logos don't look very well the way it's presented on the site currently, because it's in this round circle, and some of you don't have round circle type logos. So, but if there's a better presentation of your logo until we can get that updated with the first, with the R2 network folks, you know, send us a new logo that might fit better or look better presented on your pages. So whenever if you want to do that, just send it to us again at info@firstchallenge.com. Lastly, like I said, walk-on competitors are allowed to also submit materials to add to the community competitor teams page. So this is an example of what the pages look like now. So the URL will be linked over here on the left-hand side. It wasn't linked when I took the screenshot, so I had the direct link to it. But you'll basically see all the teams. If you scroll down this page, you would see all the teams listed. If you hit expand, it's now going to show the community video, the team members, and your contact information. So this is what it's going to look like on that portal. So, look at it and decide if there's any changes you want to be making here. what you have submitted for phase 2 will be locked into the phase 2 winners list. But like I said, we're going to create a competitors list, which will be an ongoing, evolving kind of updated set of materials. So next steps, just to wrap it up, complete the survey for the PSDR conference by tomorrow, attend office hours if you have questions. Like we said, we'll have technical, administrative, and commercialization office hours all bundled up. Generally every week, there'll be, 30 minutes of each, in sort of a 90-minute sequence. You can come in for the part of that sequence where you have questions. If you have commercialization questions, you would come in during that part of that sequence where the commercialization person is going to be there, things like that. Be on the lookout for education training events we'll be offering. Submit your ideas for things you're looking for. Don't forget, block in your calendars for the October due date and attend the conference. And be sure to register for it if you're attending, so they have a good count. And contact us if you have any questions. So I'm going to stop sharing and we'll take any questions. Yeah, so on my team, we've got a hand raised. I don't know the controls for allowing someone to speak or ask questions, but if my team can unmute anyone who needs to verbally say something or ask a question.
So one of the inquiries was about a press release with respect to the phase 2 winners. I think a lot of the other Q&As have been answered in real time. We can certainly go back and look at some of them if they're important for other people that haven't seen them yet, for sure.
Sure. Yeah, so there will be a press release sent out today from the competition level, and then each of you, like we did with phase 1, will receive a sample packet of things that you might, sample press release, things like that you might want to use to publicize the fact that you won in phase 2. So those packages, I believe, will go out today to the various teams. And so you can start promoting the fact that you're winners. It's been official, the phase 2 winner, since Friday, in terms of, it wasn't a secret. We just want to wait until after the holiday weekend to actually start the publicizing, so that it would actually, folks would pay attention to it. Any other questions?
Sonny, somebody has asked, if we were to engage with you to assist in partnering, how do you envision this working?
So we send us an email and we will try and understand better what you're looking to do. And we don't have a set process for that. Like I said, our goal is not to tell people how to team or what to do. It's more to facilitate that happening. And so my guess is that's more of an individual team by team basis. If you were in the tier 2 or 3, the standard or partial awards for phase 2 winners, then we've offered up the opportunity to have a one-on-one meeting, and we can discuss it during that time as well. And so, but I think, if I were you, and I've been in multiple prize competitions myself as a competitor, I would be at the PSCR conference, engaging with other teams, talking to them, understanding what they're doing, trying to understand if there's a way that, you might partner with them, et cetera. It's a great place to get face-to-face. You now have access to their public abstracts and public videos. So even before the conference, you can look through and prep for knowing, who you might want to target having conversations with at the conference, if you're going to be there. And so I think the other flip side, we talk about this from the point of view of seeking out other teams. Like, you're looking to partner because you've done self gap analysis and you perceive a need. Teams who are willing to accept partners but aren't necessarily planning to be activists and going out and looking for partners, you could let us know if you're interested in partnering should folks, ask us about it. So even though you don't necessarily feel a need for that partnering, but you're open to it, let us know, because then we can keep a running list. Like, here are the 3 teams that are interested in partners if someone's looking. And so again, we're not trying to be heavy-handed here, forcing partnerships, things like that. We just want to facilitate those connections.
There's another question about finding digital assets for the first logo, whether they're in the portal or the folder. I believe we could add those to the folder that's going out to all of the winners.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. I will do that.
Please do.
Okay, the next question is, can you expand on how feedback will be provided to the teams?
Okay, so there's no official feedback from the judges to the teams as per the rules. We said we would not be providing written feedback or and even verbal feedback as a requirement of the rules. However, because we have this desire to facilitate teams, addressing deficiencies they have, and perhaps reteaming or teaming up with others, collaborating with others, we've decided to offer some level of conversation with those teams. So we do not plan to do any write-ups of feedback. It'll be very much a conversation, probably with Jason and me. We'll probably be the 2 folks who will be on the call with the team representative, just discussing some, informal types of feedback and ideas, and help brainstorm with you ways in which you might address perceived deficiencies, self-identified deficiencies, or insights that we might have gained about your team or the competition in general.
Great, thank you. The next question from Jonathan is, it sounds like we will get more out of being at the conference in regards to this specific project than on a future Zoom call. Do you agree?
I'm not sure what that means then, on a future Zoom call. I think the conference, so I'll answer the question about the first part. I think the conference can be extremely important for you as a competitor. The opportunity to, you got key stakeholders for your success will be in the room. You'll have 3 days where you can interact with them. You'll have a specific place set up where they can come seek you out and find you. You're not even mixed in with the other demonstrations. We have a set aside area just for the first competition. So there's a fantastic opportunity for you to engage, but it's really what you make of it. There are a couple of teams that indicate they might not want to have a poster, and they might just want to attend and just engage with folks. That's okay. It's not a requirement for the travel funds, but we encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity to meet people who are going to be coming around looking for teams and what they're doing, and to learn more about you. So I think that it's a terrific opportunity to do something that we can't replicate in a Zoom forum, a webinar, a kickoff meeting for the next phase, things like that. There's a question here. Is there a digital component to the conference? They do have online on-demand sessions. I don't remember for sure, but like 50 pre-recorded video sessions that right now requires you to register for the full conference to attend. At least it did the last time I looked. They may be coming up with a new program which will offer lower cost access to those materials. That might be after the conference is over. I'm not sure. And so, but there's no live streaming, things like that, of the conference that I know of. So you have to be there in person to take advantage of the face-to-face sessions, and but the online videos are available now. So there are like other location-based services funded projects where folks are doing technologies. They're not part of the competition here. Actually, some of them have also form teams in this competition, but there are other awardees of location-based services where they're presenting about the work they're doing that might actually be stuff you could learn from and leverage their insights and understanding. So I would encourage you, if you can get access to those on-demand sessions, to go in and look for relevant presentations.
Great, thank you, Sunny. The next question is, we're running a test with one of our first responders on the first day of the conference. Is it okay if we miss the first day?
You can. We encourage you to get there as soon as you can. Look at the agenda, see what the schedule is, but certainly running testing with first responders is a critical part of your work. So, and luckily we have 3 days where our poster sessions will be set up, and you can do, you can engage with folks, and where they set aside time on the agenda for the first challenge competitor, poster sessions. They call them poster sessions. They're demonstrations, posters, whatever you want to, however you want to think of them.
Great, and that was the last question we had in the Q&A chat so far. Does anybody else have any questions?
So lastly, while we're waiting for any last questions to come in, that we do have office hours on Friday. I don't know if Jason will be on there, but I will be on there certainly. And the main reason for having them this week versus waiting after the PSCR conference is just in case primarily if you have questions about the conference, or if you're getting prepped for the conference, or wanting to discuss some aspect of what you're doing, certainly you can ask any question. But that's the main reason we didn't wait and start those up after next week. So we'll start back with our regular schedule. This Friday we'll have them, and then we'll skip next week, and then we'll start regular weekly office hours the week after. And so, and like I said, those will have 3 components: the technical component, the administrative component, and the commercialization component. And so we'll have put our schedule. They'll tell you who will be on for each component of the office hours each week, but we've been doing them twice a week previously, and we're going to go down to once a week moving forward. And I believe those will primarily be on Wednesdays.
So Sunny, I could be on Friday, but in the spirit of really having a focus on PSCR and overall programmatic, I probably won't unless there is some written request for technical. But I really, in my personal opinion, I think this Friday should be much more about what's next and program and PSCR. And I'm more than happy to take those inquiries through the first portal. If there are any special requests for technology or technical or even programmatic, what does phase 3 demos look like versus phase 2 through the portal, if they need to happen, before the office hours.
So yeah, a great point. And I think unless a team emails in that they have a specific technical question, I think Jason's on in Paris, and so we want and with his family, and so we want to respect his time away. So we appreciate him taking his time today to join in to the call. So unless we have a specific question someone sends to me, I think Jason, that's not a requirement. And one thing about office hours, some people hear it and maybe you haven't heard of them before, you haven't attended them before. They're just free open sessions where you can just come in and ask any question, and depending on who's on, they can address that question as best they can. And so they're not required. Don't want everybody here to feel like, oh, I've got to show up for office hours on Friday because they're going to be talking about important stuff. I don't have any agenda for Friday for those office hours on Friday. I'm just going to be there in case you have questions related to the conference. So you can drop in, ask a question, and leave. Don't show up at all. It's not presentational. There's no new content that's going to come out. So, but that will be there. So just look at the office calendar, office hours calendar, which is linked off the first portal. And you can see you'll have the date, the time, and the Zoom link to get into that meeting. And so we keep that calendar update usually 3 to 4 to 5 weeks out in advance, so you know what's coming up and who's going to be on and things like that. So, but for this one, it's, I see it primarily as just PSCR conference last minute questions. If you don't have any, don't worry about it. Don't need to feel like you need to show up.
Great. Sunny, I think the last question we had here was, is there any way we can see our scores?
We are not planning to provide that level of detail to any team. We decided to break it up into tiers as a way to provide some level of information back to the teams as far as how they perform relative to the criteria and the goals of the main competition. But we do not plan to provide specific scores to teams.
Great. I think that's all the questions we had.
Well, with that said, always email me, info@firstchallenge.com. Come straight to my email. I'm happy to answer those questions. I engage with some of you frequently. Always feel free to reach out. We're very excited to work with you. I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of you for the first time in person at the conference next week. If you have any questions, let us know, and do fill out the PSCR survey so we know if you're attending or not. And also it lets Haley know about processing travel prizes as well. So we want to get those checks out to you as quickly as we can. So the sooner we have your information, the faster we can process your check. So we want to get those out as quickly as possible so you can start using those funds to enhance your work. So thank you, everybody. And like I said, send an email if you have any further questions.